Welcome to the latest episode of the Pruskop Podcast. Today we are going through the January stats for the market trends going on in Edmonton here. I have Ashley Weber joining me, who is a great residential realtor on our team, and let's dive in.
Let's do it. I'm excited.
Yeah, so let me pull up the stats here. And then we'll go through the numbers, and right afterwards, we'll talk about what Ashley and I have both seen in the market, actual stories, boots on the ground stories on what these numbers really reflect with what you can expect being a buyer or a seller in today's market. So Ashley, do you want to kick us off with the average selling price for the all residential?
Sounds good. So all residentials, including detached single family homes, semi-detached, so a half duplex, row, townhouse, and apartment. It's all the categories. So the average selling price in the month of January was $438,000, which is almost a 10% increase from where average selling prices were last January.
For simply detached homes, it's beating the average right now for 16.2% year over year, or even 4.2% month over month. That's just insane.
Semi-detached, the average sale price was $421,000, which was an 11% increase from this time last year.
Yeah, and then townhomes are something that is getting a lot of attention as these homing prices go up and up. So once again, going up 15.8% year over year, or 6.6 just month over month.
Townhouses are super hot right now. Anyone who purchased a townhouse like 3 years ago who wants to sell it right now is going to probably making like a huge amount of appreciation. They're an extremely hot commodity right now.
Yeah, and talking to sellers right now, I'm just showing them the HPI. That's a tool that we have, the historical price index, and we can see the average trends per neighborhood for the past 20 years. And not for every neighborhood, but for a lot of neighborhoods, we're at all-time highs since 2007. So if you're looking to sell, now's a really good time. Another thing is there's more listings available on the market as the weather warms up. It's been really dry out there. So how many more listings are available right now, Ashley?
In January, we had 2,452 more listings come on the market. And in total of all the available inventory, there's 3,731 properties available on the market.
Yeah, so we shot up 83% from amount of listings in December to January. And usually we'll see more amount of listings coming around end of February, March, when it really starts to warm up. But the spring market is turning into the winter market now with how active the market is.
Yeah, definitely. And there's still a lack of inventory. I mean, people are probably like everyone has to at this point know that there's a huge lack of inventory. I started real estate in October of 2021. So my first January was in January 2022, and I pulled up the January 2022 stats just for fun. There was 4,719 available properties for inventory in 2022, right? So that's 1,000 more properties to choose from on the market than what we see right now. Don't even get me into the price difference because that will blow your mind.
I'm like gonna get to that.
I'm in the process of calling my buyers who bought in 2022, like, hey, just so you know, if you have any interest in selling, what you purchased your property for back then, you're going to be able to sell it for a lot more now.
And that's only after 2-3 years of appreciation. Like that's not holding on to it for your grandchildren. Now it's worth more. Like this is really quick turnaround.
Yeah. And it was a hot market back then too. Like even though there was more inventory, I remember because that was my first, I jumped into real estate when things were super busy. It was the middle of COVID. And all my buyers then were still in multiple offers and offering over list price. But yeah, it's just wild.
Yeah, and if we look at lastly in the bottom right-hand corner here, just the average days on market across all of these categories, homes are selling faster than last year across every inventory. So I'll stop sharing this now, and Ashley and I are going to go through a couple stories we have being boots on the ground and what it actually looks like if you're a seller or a buyer right now. So Ashley, you were mentioning that you feel a little bit uncomfortable advising your buyers to go unconditional, and you work mostly with primary home buyers.
I would never ask them to, but I would just say if you want to be successful in having your offer accepted, you may have to make an unconditional offer. And I say, I feel uncomfortable because I never want to tell someone that they have to do that. They have to be willing to take that risk on their own. And I work with a lot of first-time home buyers as well. So it's their first time. It's their biggest investment that they're making. It's kind of a little nerve-wracking for them to think about unconditional. But just one example. So some of my first-time home buyers, we looked at a property. They actually didn't end up making an offer on this one, but they were thinking about it. And I found out a couple days later, I knew there was a lot of showings on that. When we came, there was a showing. When we left, there was another showing. So out of curiosity, I called the listing agent and say, hey, what ended up happening? She said they had 5 unconditional offers, which I have never heard of. I'm sure it happens. I'm sure it happens, but I have never heard of that. 5 unconditional. Like in any of the multiple offer scenarios I've been in with clients, it's been maybe 1 or 2 out of 5, but to have all 5 of them unconditional, and of course they're all over asking as well. I can't remember exactly, but I think it sold for like 40 above asking, something like that. The property was in McKernan, which is close to the university, so of course a very desirable area. My clients wouldn't have had a shot even if they did make an offer on it.
Because typically unconditional offers are a lot more popular on investment properties like flips or burrs or teardowns, because the contractor or the renovator, they're looking at the property and they're like, it doesn't really matter what's going on with it right now because I'm just going to pretty much tear everything out and redo it anyway. But on the investment side of things in residential, like the unconditional offers, there is one up in, where was it? St. Albert. And it was on the market for 3 days. The home was more of a burr. It wasn't listed extremely low, like a touch on the low side. And there was 7 unconditional offers and it ended up going 60K above ask. And I think it's becoming difficult for a lot of buyers, especially investors, because these buyers, the primary buyers, are getting so desperate to find a home that they're okay finding something that is run down that they can put work into. They're fine with that. And they're not looking at it as, oh, I can walk away with a 30K spread. They're looking at it as a primary. So if you're an investor looking at on-market deals, you just can't financially compete with primary homeowners because they don't care what the spread is. They're going to be living there for 30 years.
It's a mix of primary and investors, right? So the investors are typically looking for a suited property where they can get two rents if it's a suited home that we're looking at. But even primary home buyers now are wanting to get into those and live upstairs and rent out the basement as a mortgage helper just to help with the affordability too, right? And just like you said, home buyers are more willing to offer a higher price, but an investor is going to have a max amount because they obviously have to make a profit or it's not going to be.
Yeah, fantastic example. Like there are so many primary home buyers that do want a legally suited basement. So all they see it as is like, oh, I can get $1,200 or $1,400 a month to help me out with my mortgage. But when investors are looking at this property, they're like, well, if it goes above X price, then I'm not going to get any cash flow and it doesn't make sense for me. But it makes sense for the primary home buyer because they don't have to abide by those numbers or pay for property management, etc. On my primary side of things, there's a lovely young couple I was working with for quite some time, and the market was so dry over the winter season. And one of the last properties we offered on, we went, I think, 30K above ask with an escalation clause to go up to 40K above ask, only a 5-day conditional period, which is pretty good. I sent the selling agent, I gave him, like, this is their mortgage broker. You can double check with them. Like, they are approved for this. We've already talked to the lawyer. I've already talked to the inspector. He can get in there on Tuesday. Like, we are ready to go. And we got beat by a 50K above ask unconditional offer. And I looked at the comps and like, I think like going 40K above ask is the maximum it was worth anyway. So I'm kind of glad that we didn't get it just because the value wasn't there to back it up. But that's just how crazy the market is right now.
It is. If you're a buyer looking to purchase right now, you definitely have to be prepared, have your ducks in a row, have a pre-approval completed, and not just a calculator or even not even just talking to a mortgage broker and saying, hey, these are my numbers, can you crunch them? No, you actually have to get all of your documents, submit all of them, get a pre-approval letter from your mortgage broker. And things like pre-booking your inspection, having shorter condition timelines, having a bigger deposit, the condition date exactly where the seller wants it. Like you really have to put your best foot forward if you want to have your offer chosen.
Yeah. And Ashley and I are on the same team. So we work with Calvin Realty and we actually have a list. I think it's of 16 different things that we can do to sweeten your deal. So you mentioned some of those: offering a higher deposit, shrinking your conditional period. Another thing is you can write a love letter. It never hurts. Sometimes it'll work. Sometimes it won't do anything. but basically writing a love letter to the seller saying, oh my God, we love the house so much. You did such a great job with it. Like, please pick us. So there's a lot of things that you can do, but like an escalation clause, I'm sure some people listening don't even know what that is. Can you explain what that is, Ashley?
So an escalation clause, basically you're writing in your offer, say the house is priced at 400 and your client's going to offer 425. An escalation clause says, if you receive another offer that's higher than mine, say another offer comes in at 430, if that happens, I will offer 3,000 more than the highest offer, up to 440,000. So even though your offer was 425, another one came in at 430, your offer now would be 433.
Another thing, when I explain this to buyers, they're like, oh, but I'm showing my cards that I'm willing to pay 440. But you have to receive proof of the competing offer if your price gets bumped up. So it's not the selling agent looking and saying, well, actually, they're okay to go up to 440, so let's push them for 440. No, there has to be proof that Bob and Jane offered 337 or 437 to bump you up to 440.
Yeah.
But these are a lot of tips and tricks that a lot of realtors don't know about. Definitely a lot of buyers don't know about, and some sellers are unfamiliar with as well. So working with a realtor that is well versed in these heavy sellers market and has these tools up their sleeve in the first place is just great. Something I want to mention with pricing is I've worked with obviously a lot of buyers, and it's hard to provide comps. So comparable properties that have sold or sold in the past year, past 3 months, or even the past month. We just talked about went up 6% month over month. So it can be frustrating for buyers when they see that this house that is now listed for 400 last year would have only sold for 380. And they're like, well, why would I offer 400 if, like, based on this data, it's only worth 380? It's not, though. It's because the market, even month over month, is jumping up. So comparables are really good to make sure that you're in the general ballpark and you're not paying 500 for a $400,000 property. But it's just a guideline. It's a tool. It's not the answer.
100%. When the market's moving this fast too, like, you can't be looking at a comp that sold even like 4 weeks ago and based price
sounds ridiculous. Like, if you're not in the market, you're like, what do you mean? Like, that just happened. I can't rely on that information.
Exactly. And it comes down to supply and demand, right? There's not enough supply and there's a huge amount of demand. So a few months ago, there weren't nearly as many buyers as there are now who are eagerly wanting to purchase a property. The interest rates are coming down. The weather's warming up. People are finally starting to want to get in real estate and stop sitting on the sidelines. And so if you're someone who's just getting zoomed in on comps instead of realistically thinking about how the market is consistently changing and prices are going up, then it's going to be tough for you to win.
Yeah, we have a very bullish market right now, and we had talks of the tariffs. Obviously, we don't know if that's going to happen or not, but that's just going to drive prices up even more. We were talking to the head of one of the biggest developers in the city here, which is Pacesetter Homes, and he was saying that he's going to have to pass on those costs for his materials onto the end user or the buyer. So an example he gave, he's like, my window panes come from Canada, but the vinyl that wraps around the windows comes from the States. So if there's a tariff on that, like, I can't pay that. Even though it's the same materials that I'm using, it's going to be more. So something he said is, if these tariffs do come into effect, the prices that we're seeing in homes right now, especially new builds, what he was talking about, are actually at a discount from what you can expect. And as the interest rates drop, historically, when interest rates drop, prices go up. There's a saying in real estate, if you date the rate and you marry the price, and that's because interest rates will fluctuate. But if you can get a decent price or a price that you're happy with, just lock it in. Don't worry about the interest rate, just lock it in and deal with it in the future.
Yeah, no, 100%.
I do want to touch on multifamily. So there are a ton of pre-construction multifamilies that are coming into Edmonton, specifically in the West End or South Central Edmonton. And typically, like last year, we were seeing the prices for an 8 unit, so 4 up, 4 down, trending right around 2.2, give or take 100,000, depending on the location. And triplexes, so 3 up, 3 down, were right around 1.7. And it'll fluctuate on the area still, but now I'm seeing these prices jump up to 2.3, 2.4. I even saw one in Holyrood for 2.5 for an 8 unit. And that's just, that area is obviously very nice, but 2.5 for those 8 units. So if you are interested in the pre-construction multifamily, a lot of people are worried that the area is getting oversaturated because there is so much of these developments happening. We are expected to have another 1 million people join the city of Edmonton in the near future here. So if you are concerned about these properties not having the demand in the long run, we're just not forecasting that. The amount of people that are moving to Alberta and Edmonton specifically, as Calgary is starting to plateau, is astronomical, and there's going to be demand for homes.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, it's still the most affordable large city in all of Canada, which is why a lot of people are moving here. We've got good job stability. There's tons of like the Alberta advantage. We talk about it all the time, right? I don't think it's going to slow down. If anything, prices are just going to go up and it's going to get more competitive. And the price to get into a home is only going to increase from here.
Mm-hmm. I was speaking to an agent that's down in Calgary, and historically, Edmonton will track behind Calgary for like 6 or 7 years. So we can kind of look to our little brother down there and see what we can expect. But she was saying that that time frame is probably shrinking to 12 to 14 months. And they're just going through the ringer down there in Calgary. They're starting to plateau now, but she was just saying, get your listings because it is exhausting being a buying agent. She was telling me there's a couple times where she was on showing appointments. So they had like 3 lined up to show to her buyers. And by the time they got to the second one, she got a call from the seller of the first one saying, oh, we just sold unconditional above ask. So it's off the table.
Happens all the time. I've seen that happen like at least 3 times in the last week. The client sends me the property. I immediately, like I'm not waiting 10 minutes. I'm immediately trying to book a showing, getting information on it. Oh, already sold, unconditional, sight unseen. The day it was listed, sometimes hours after it was listed.
And like, I know myself as a realtor, I feel bad, like, you know, like pushing this onto the buyers, but like, it's crazy, just get in. But like, it's not me, an agent, trying to get a sale from you because I want my commission. It's me, an agent, trying to get a sale for you so you can get your home. I've worked with some people that are trying to throw lowball offers in, and it's just hard to communicate to them that you don't have the leverage right now as a buyer in the market. It's not, can you get a home for a steal of a deal? It's, can you get a home or not?
Right.
And depending on how attractive your offer is, that's going to determine where you land.
Yeah. And going back to what I said at the beginning about how I started, my first January was in 2022 and how it was competitive back then. Those buyers that I had back then are so happy that they purchased when they did. Mm-hmm. And anyone who's purchasing now, in 3 years from now, I'm guessing it's going to be the same thing because prices are only going to be that much higher. And you're going to be like, I'm glad I got in when I did and I didn't wait anymore. Because some people, they're finding, you know, if they were looking last year, maybe they were looking at a detached single family home. Now the way prices are going, they're actually downgrading to a semi-detached or a half duplex just because it's the price range that they're able to get into now, right?
And I know a lot of people, they're deterred from condos or townhouses, but we just looked like, they're like, oh, I don't want to buy a townhouse because of condo fees. Look at how much these townhouses are going up. Like, what was it? Like 16%, I think we said. Yeah. So yeah, even townhouses are jumping up. So a lot of people don't see those as a good investment opportunity, but even those are appreciating at a vast rate.
Yeah, 100%. And the condo fees, like, on average, you can see condo fees around $300 to $400. Sometimes you can get even much lower than that in the $200 range. But in the grand scheme of things, like, so many people get scared off by condo fees. I would get more scared off by condo fees in an apartment condo because those are continually going up. But it just seems like with townhouses, they stabilize. Even if a condo was built in the 70s, a lot of them still, the condo fees are $400 to $500. Whereas if you look at apartments that were built back then, they're probably in the $600 to $800 range, depending where they're located. Of course, closer to downtown is a little bit higher, but I think townhouses are a great option for sure.
What do you think is the most competitive price range for single family detached right now?
Maybe like 400 to 500, 450 to 550. You need probably at least 400 to get into a detached, unless you're getting something that's older, an older bungalow in the north side that needs a lot of work. If you're getting something that's a little bit more modern, at least 400, and that's only going to get you detached in certain neighborhoods. But I would say 450 to 550 is a healthier range for having more options on location for detached.
Yeah. And if you're looking for detached with the legally suited basement, last year you'd probably be looking right around 450. And this year you're getting a lot closer to 500. So 450, you can probably find a decent one, like one that's been renovated, built in like the 1960s, 70s, 80s, but that's been recently renovated. Not brand new renovated, but a couple of years ago. And that will probably be around 450, 460. But if you're looking for one that's just been flipped, then you're a lot closer to 500. And I've had some uncomfortable conversations with buyers. They're like, why isn't my money only getting me this? Like, that's that's where we are at right now. And yeah, I'm sorry, but this is
It's
all that I
still
can provide
so
to you.
good. It's still so good compared to Toronto, Vancouver, Calgary.
Yes.
Like
That's the other
I know
thing.
we complain here in Edmonton about the prices, but it's still so good. Like we don't know how good we have it. Just go shopping in Toronto and Vancouver and you'll be coming back here immediately.
Yeah, when I was in Toronto, I got on the bus to get to my Airbnb and I talked to this random old lady on the bus and I told her, of course, I was a realtor. You got to plug wherever you can.
Yeah.
And I was talking to her about homing prices. And I think she said that there was a house that her friend has that she's renting out for $4,000 a month. I'm like,
Wow.
what the hell?
Wow. That's wild.
And I looked at her and I was like, how are people expected to buy homes? She's like, they're not. Like, you just, if you're living here, you're never going to own a home. Like the average Joe, at least, you're not going to be able to ever buy a home in Toronto. But it's very realistic still here in Edmonton for you to get in. So I agree with that. If you're local and you've never zoomed out and looked at the national perspective on homing prices, then yeah, the prices are going up and they're unreasonable. But if you look at the rest of Canada, that's why everybody's moving here. It's so attractive. Like for that single family detached home with a legally suited basement to be 500K, we might be like, "Ooh, it's getting pricey." But those Toronto people, they're not blinking an eye.
Need some perspective. Just talk to someone. Like we need to link up, find a realtor in Toronto, and then get our clients to talk to each other. I mean, it would make the Toronto clients feel worse and our clients feel better. So I would agree to that. But
yeah, I think it's like complaining about stubbing your toe to somebody who just lost their arm in a jet propeller or something. Like it's like, yeah, you're in pain, but like boo-hoo. Yeah. But that's where we're at in the market right now.
That's where we're at.
Yeah. Thank you so much for joining me, Ashley. If somebody would like to work with you directly, how can they reach out to you?
They can text me or call me at 587-989-1025, or you can email me, ashley@calvinrealty.ca.
What are the kind of clients that you just love, love, love to work with?
Well, I'm in residential. I love primary home buyers. I have a sweet spot for first-time home buyers. My background is in teaching, so I love the whole education side of things. But really anyone. I mean, right now, sellers, I would love to work with more sellers.
Yeah.
But yeah, no, I love helping people find their first home or their second home or their first home in Alberta. All of the above.
Perfect. Well, thank you so much for joining me and going over the stats and sharing those stories and some perspective as well with people that are going to be listening.
Yeah, thank you for having me.
All right. Have a wonderful day, Ashley.
You too. Bye.
Bye.